J'en ai 26. Je pense qu'ils sont aussi à la famille que moi.
J'imagine. A best-selling novel about a family's harrowing journey from Vietnam to Canada during the end of the Vietnam War is heading to the big screens later this week. So for a closer look at the film Rue, we're joined by author Kim Twe and recent Order of Canada recipient, as well as screenwriter and director Charles-Olivier Mouchard and actor Karine Vanasse. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I had a chance to watch this film. It is shot so beautifully and done so well. Congratulations, by the way. Kim, this film was based on, your true story of your family coming to Quebec during the end of the war. And, it was Karine who kind of encouraged you to put your story to paper. So tell us about that moment, because I know there's a friendship here, which is very unique because you're also in the film, Karine. So what finally made you say, I want to tell my story?
Oh, no, really, because Karine gave me a notebook and I fell asleep a lot at red lights and I started writing in it. That's
It's a very simple story. She has...
Fell asleep at red lights, yes.
I mean, yeah, receiving one note. I think you were so ready. You had done so many things in your life, but you were she was carrying not only that story, but
words. I had a lot of words.
Exactly.
I love words, and Karine knew that I love words.
Yeah.
And she just brought me that notebook, and I started writing from the back because I didn't think that it was important, what I was doing. Going to the grocery is more important. It was on the first page. And then and then after a few pages, I called her up and I said, come, I think I want you to hear what I've written.
Wow.
And we were in a coffee shop next door to the restaurant where I was, and I read it to her, and she said, yeah, that's it. And when I finished it, she was the one who brought me a printer.
Oh my gosh.
I still have the image of you crossing the garden with a printer.
I walk around with a big printer usually.
Yes.
No, but this whole project, everyone was so involved. The producer of the film, André Dupuis, was one of the customer at your restaurant as well. So that's how you met many years ago. So then, when you wrote the book, he took it to a publisher as well, and then bought the rights for the movie right away. And then just to see, and Charles-Olivier came on board pretty early on in the project. So it was just, it's really a project of love, and it's. I think we were so proud to be part of. Telling that story to everyone, even to Vietnamese. Like, it was so moving in Quebec.
There's so many Vietnamese who, the parents don't want to share the story so that the children don't have to wear the weight of the story. But the beauty in this is that Charles-Olivier thought that it was possible to make a movie out of the book, and the book is strange a little bit, right there.
Well, it's obviously very
strange. No, let's translate it.
When Kim says it's strange,
no,
it's not
such,
strange.
Because it's a short book. It's so dense, and it's so poetic. And maybe that's the poetry of it all. That sometimes you could, you could read the book and.
Because Kim she's an observer of life, and she watches the world. She sees the world like if she was a street photographer, and she writes about it, and then she brings it back to us in this poetry, in her words. And I love that
in a very distilled way.
Yeah, and she writes very few words. And once she said it's very easy to write a 1,000-page book, but it takes years and decades to write like a little 100-page book.
I totally agree with you. Trying to get something concise is so difficult. But Charles-Olivier, you did an amazing job illustrating that poetry in the film, just with the way the scenes are directed and told through Tin's eyes, which is the young girl that you're supposed to play. So was that difficult, kind of like bringing her novel, which is short words, to a screenplay in both French and Vietnamese?
But the idea exactly is that since Kim, she writes, she describes the world around her, so it became a film in which we were going to be observers, and the little girl Tin, she was going to be the one looking at the world and discovering the world and kind of bringing us that world, that the strange, the weirdness, the beauty, the harshness, and kind of in a very naive way back to us.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful, the scene where you arrive at the airport and you see snow for the first time, and how that contrasts with kind of the nightmare that you're living in the refugee camp. But a really quick question, Kim, when your family first saw the film, what was their reaction to it?
What was the reaction?
Karine can tell you, because she was there.
She was there.
Yeah, we made a special TV show with that moment. We filmed that moment for the Quebec audience. and you weren't expecting much. Not that you weren't expecting much from them, but I think it's so special to see their stories on screen.
Yeah,
but
they were very reserved, you know, the Asian way. They don't express their emotions so much. And my mom would tell you that she never cried, but the camera caught her, you know, trying to just...
Oh my goodness, that's so
But
special.
your father, it was beautiful what he was saying.
Yeah.
And he was, I don't remember the words that he used, but he was also talking about that contrast. You know, in the way you write, there is that contrast.
And to take him back to that story, you know, to remember, because while you're doing, you know, you're trying to survive, you don't have time, to identify your emotions and so on and so forth. So to see the movie, it's a privilege to go back into history and say, oh, it was hard.
Yeah.
But while you're doing it, you cannot feel it.
The movie is a big success in Quebec, and I think how your family received it, and when you say it's a privilege to go back, you know, in your own story, and but I think that's what the impact that it has on audiences. That's that's the kind of impact it has, and I think that's why the movie is doing so well.
And I love that it's a labor of love, talking about really the story of love between the family, but also in the community, with how the community in Quebec embraced you and your foster family, in which you play one of the members. Listen, I wish we had more time to talk. Kim, Vanessa, and Charles Olivier, thank you so much for joining us. The film Brew is out January 26th, I believe, in 15 additional theaters, so please look out for it and watch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time for another morning conversation this morning with Dr. Isaac Bogos, infectious diseases specialist at Toronto General Hospital. Good to see you back, Dr. Bogos. Thanks again for the time this morning. I want to start here. The recent deaths of not only 6 children in Ontario, but 4 also in British Columbia, all from a bacterial infection grabbing parents' attention. Of course, we're talking strep A. What do we need to know about this illness, and why is this happening now?
Yeah, awful to hear. Yeah, absolutely awful to hear about these devastating cases. This is Group A streptococcus. Group A streptococcus is a very common bacterial infection, especially in children. And many parents know this infection well because regular Group A streptococcus can cause strep throat, can cause a skin or soft tissue infection. They're typically uncomfortable, but easy to diagnose and easy to treat. And in fact, I'm sure many people listening have either had this before or their children have had this before. What's unique in this situation is rarely Group A streptococcus can be invasive, meaning it gets into deeper tissues, it gets into the bloodstream, and that can cause a very, very severe infection. People get very sick very quickly, and it's important that they seek urgent medical care so that they can go on the appropriate antibiotics and make a full recovery. However, if there are delays in care or if there's overwhelming infection, you can have these devastating side effects. It's not entirely clear why this is happening now. We certainly know that invasive Group A streptococcus is a little bit more common following viral illnesses. And of course, our winter has been punctuated by a large COVID wave, influenza, RSV, and other infections. So that might be the cause, but I still think it's not entirely clear just yet.
Okay, appreciate that perspective. Let's move internationally right now. And I know this is right in your wheelhouse, Dr. Bogos. Cameroon starting the world's first malaria vaccination program for children. Let's talk about that.
Huge deal. Absolutely huge deal. So we're in the era where malaria is going to be transformed from an infection that kills hundreds and hundreds of thousands of children per year to one where hopefully it's more of a nuisance. We'll see. This is the beginning of something big. Vaccines for malaria are available. What they do is they reduce the risk of severe malaria cases. And many countries are starting to roll out this vaccine. The really interesting component of this is that the vaccine that's being used is pretty good in the sense that there's lots of doses and you likely need updated doses on a regular basis. But all the data to date shows that it significantly reduces pediatric mortality from malaria. And again, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of deaths per year of kids under the age of 5. And this will go a long way. What else is really interesting is you look at what's coming through the pipeline. There's updated malaria vaccines that may even provide even better protection. And hopefully in our lifetime, malaria deaths will be a thing of the past.
Wow, to think about the lives that can be saved from that. That is pretty remarkable, Dr. Bogos. All right, in the meantime, this is something that was really percolating more last week, but we didn't get to talk to you last week, so I wanted to bring it up anyway. X, Twitter, buzzing about tweets about Disease X, which, to be clear, is not referring to the content of the social media site, but rather it's a placeholder for the future pandemic discussed at the World Economic Forum. Folks, for conspiracy theorists, you've got pandemic, check, World Economic Forum, check. But Dr. Bogos, help us tackle the X factor here. Is this evidence of like responsible public health planning, or is it something more alarming?
No, this is, I mean, I like how you framed it. Like, this is perfect for conspiracy theorists, but like, just so everyone's clear, Disease X is just a placeholder. It's just a name that we've given long before COVID-19 for any infection that has epidemic or pandemic potential. And whenever we talk about Disease X, we say, okay, how can we better take steps to prevent, respond, and identify infections of epidemic and pandemic potential? Of course, we don't know what those infections are. We have a clue. We know that there's, coronaviruses that have this potential. We know that there's influenza viruses that have this potential. But are there other, viruses in nature that could spill over into humans and cause this? So we just use the term Disease X as a placeholder name. That's it. Nothing else to it.
Seems to apply to Twitter as well these days. Okay, in the meantime, Dr. Bogos, always good to have a conversation with you. Thanks so much.
Hockey was the only focus, the only thing I wanted to do.
There are no holes in Alexander Daig's game.
People truly believed that Alex was the next coming.
The first pick, Alexander Daig.
They were expecting him.
A new documentary dropping this week follows the story of Alexander Daig, the heralded #1 overall NHL draft pick in 1993 of the Ottawa Senators, and his journey from a can't-miss prospect to finishing his hockey career in Switzerland. So joining us now is Alexander Daig himself. Alexander, good to speak to you this morning. I remember your story so well, as the #1 pick and all the things that changed in hockey, after you joined the league, from the entry-level contracts to the teams allegedly tanking to try to get you as a pick here. Before we get into sort of your career itself, what do you make of the sort of impact you left on the league in terms of like how you changed the game in terms of, the lottery, the salaries for entry-level players, things like that?
Well, I'm sorry for the young players.
I bet.
I arrived at a time, I think that 93 and 94 was the lockout. So everything, and they divulged the salary, I think, in 89 or 90. So Lindros came in. After that, I came in 2 years later. CBA, the strike or the lockout, and everything. I think the timing for me to be in that at that precise moment was, you couldn't ask for a better time. So it changed a lot of things for the better. Yeah. I think the salary cap came in, free agency got reduced from 32 to right now it's 24, 25 years old. So it makes it some amazing changes for the players. Yeah,
so you were sort of deemed the chosen one, an incredibly talented player. I mean, what you did in junior hockey was impressive, getting you to become the #1 draft pick. But then your career, didn't exactly go the way you had expected it to. And I wonder, how much you'd thought about your career up until this point of, shooting this documentary. Was it something that's like on your mind a lot, or had you sort of moved past what had happened, how you sort of didn't become the next generational player as you were touted?
Yeah, I moved past that for sure. At one point, I'm going to be 49, almost 50 years old. So it's been, I started, I was 18. It's so tough for me to look back now. I got kids that are 12, 14, 15, 16 now. And seeing them and just thinking, okay, that kid could be in the NHL in 2 years. There's no way. Yeah. So I was that age. I was very naive. I was so young. And I was driving to a situation I was not ready to handle, and for the good and the bad. At the end, the overall result, I'm very happy with. I always been very positive and happy person, and that didn't change. It's just that my career at that time was not the main focus, and refocusing. People said, okay, you got to be so excited to be in the NHL. Yes, you are, but at the same time, it's a total different life. You come from, living with billets to making millions of dollars, living by yourself in a city you don't know with no friends. Yeah. And traveling, the hockey life is a tough life. Don't get me wrong. It's a super life, but you take the plane, you eat, you play, you take the plane, you eat, you play. So it's repeat. Yeah. And so you have to be very strong mentally and ready to attack this task. Yeah. And I was not.
And all the pressure that was on you just as a sort of the next great prospect, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, your name was mentioned in sort of that sort of same breath. So let's talk about your mental health, Alexander. This coincidentally is, Bell Let's Talk Day. Mental health, such an important factor here. Do you think the league is now doing enough for younger players getting into the game? And what would you recommend based on the experience you went through?
Well, I think the league is doing awesome. I think it's not this goal of it's not, I wouldn't say the goal, but it's not their job in a sense. I think the team's got a lot, the team and the leagues, yes, but I think around the players, the agents and everybody around a player is an important part. I always say, if you're a tennis player, you have a team. When they say team, it's not just the guy who's going to hit the ball back to you. It's the guy who's going to talk to you and is going to frame your next, I wouldn't say your next victim, but your next match and so forth. So I would say for young guys, just bring a lot of good people around you. I think what the Penguins did with Cindy Crosby, that's textbook what you should do.
Yeah.
You bring a young player at 18 with a veteran players that established in the league, family guy, and just grow into that frame of mind is key. And after that, well, you're going to make your own choices, but
yeah,
hey.
Indeed. Well, listen, Alexandre, I'm so happy that you are happy now. Great to talk to you today. Chosen One, Alexandre Daigle premieres on Prime Video on Friday. Great to talk. Good luck with all this. Appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate your platform, the opportunity. Have a great day.
Absolutely. You too.
Well, the foodie fixture many await is almost here. Winterlicious is kicking off tomorrow with nearly 200 restaurants offering their best three-course fixed-price experience. And we have 3 restaurateurs here with us today. Chef Sergio Nazario, owner of Nuna Kitchen and Bar, Mihir Shete, who is the chef and founder at Curryish Tavern, and Chef Ryan Lister, who is the brains behind the Rabbit Hole and all the chef. Yes, all the brains. Thank you so much for being here, chefs. So I want to go through all this amazing food that you've brought in. I'll start with you, Chef Nazario. Let's talk about the Peruvian food that you're offering and the dishes that you've brought with us today.
Hello, good morning.
Hi.
We are Nuna Kitchen and Bar. We offer a Peruvian fusion food. We have here chaufa with a slow-cooked pork with barbecue sauce that we made on the house. And here for entrance, we have yuca cassava with huancaína sauce. That is a sauce that we made with yellow pepper that is from Peru.
Wow. Okay. And what is it about Peruvian food that kind of makes it different, that people will eat it and be like, okay, this is distinctly a Peruvian dish?
We have different flavors. In Peru, we use a lot of peppers that are not that spicy, but give us a lot of flavor in our food. I think that's the best.
Wow. Okay. It looks certainly very colorful and very good. I'm just going to take a bite if you don't mind me. Sorry if I'm being rude. Oh my gosh. So much flavor. It's got like that sweet and kind of spicy. Yeah. I don't think I think I've tried like Peruvian salads before, but nothing like this. So people can go to your restaurant and try.
You should go to Nuna.
Okay, Nuna. And that's right on Queen Street as well. Okay, thank you so much. We'll get back to you shortly. And then we also have here Chef Mihir Shete with Curryish Tavern. And your Indian dishes are, you say it's Indian food, but maybe it's a little bit of a fresh, new age take on it. So what have you brought with you today?
That's right. The whole idea behind Curryish is taking all the Indian, like growing up in India, taking all those dishes which we ate, the flavors which we ate, and over the time being chef, we learned a lot of techniques. And the kind of idea is to bring it together, yet keeping it very authentic and very original flavors at least. Here we have the appetizers. Sweet potato papadi chaat, again a street food version of it.
Okay.
Obviously a little bit elaborated version of it, just so that everybody could try it. Then the main course is, there you go, try it, lick your fingers, beautiful, delicious.
Wow,
right there for the main course we have beef kebab with celery root korma. We also try to cook seasonal, so celery root, make curry out of the celery root, cashews. This is our chocolate dessert, chocolate and sesame dessert.
Okay, don't mind me, I have a sweet tooth.
Please go ahead. The one very important dessert ingredient in this dish is jaggery.
What is that?
Which is like a sugar made with sugar cane, but just like palm sugar, but very regional to where we come from.
That is so delicious.
And it has a very like caramelly flavor, but that's the most distinctive ingredient in that dish.
Wow, I might like that more than a brownie. It has almost this light, refreshing taste to it.
And sesame, right? And sesame adds a lot of flavor to it. Obviously, if you're allergic to sesame, you can have that.
Yeah.
But again, we have plenty of options on our menu.
Oh my
to try
goodness.
out.
Sorry, I'm just going from like one dish to another, wrecking. I love, first of all, the beautiful presentation. Once again, this is from Curryish Tavern.
That's right.
Curryish Tavern. Thank
Curryish
you so
Tavern on Queen
much,
Street.
Chef. Appreciate that. Okay, finally, Ryan, it's your turn. Ryan Lister, the brains behind the rabbit hole.
The brains. I'm definitely not all the brains. So we got an amazing bunch of dishes this year. Our restaurant's in the heart of the downtown core in Toronto, the Rabbit Hole. Head chef Andrew Naris came up with an amazing spread. A couple options here. We got our beet gravlax, our beet cured salmon with a bit of treacle and maple, some broadflower crostini, some pickles. We got an amazing chicken balmoral, which is a chicken breast stuffed with haggis. So we get whole animals in from Tamarack Farms. We butcher them down. We save everything. We use everything. We make an amazing haggis to go in the center of the chicken. Some green beans, nice gravy, carrot puree, roasted neeps, carrots, bunch of goodness. We got some tarts, some pies, all the delicious stuff. So
yeah, so it's very kind of like fancy, very yummy gastropub food.
Sure, yeah, it's proper British.
Proper British.
Proper pucker British.
And you've got
deliciousness.
a great drinks menu as well, right?
Amazing cocktails, amazing beers, great wine list.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a real knockout spot, really good atmosphere. In the afternoons, early dinner time, late dinner time. So yeah, come on by, try some good pub grub.
Wow, very delicious. Nick, I think you're eyeing all this food anxiously.
I need a napkin to stop my mouth. I didn't catch, Chef, about what the toast was on that.
The toast, this comes from Broadflower, which is a bakery in Liberty Village, and they make these amazing sourdough breads with organic flour that's all grown in Canada. So definitely something we like to highlight. We have a big relationship with them. So yeah, go check out Broadflower as well.
There's grill marks on toast, which is rare.
Nice little grill. It goes great with the salmon, great with the pickles.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And Winterlicious runs when, gentlemen?
Tomorrow, right? Until February the 8th. And all of you have lunch and dinner menus, or just dinner?
Lunch and dinner. Yeah.
Lunch and dinner.
I have lunch on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
How much does this time of the year actually mean to your establishments? And let's start over here in terms of, it's been a difficult period coming out of COVID. I'm not sure when your restaurant opened up, but how significant is it to get that influx of people at this time of year?
I think Winterlicious is a good opportunity to people to go to restaurants and share some new food because, January is a little bit tough. And you can go and share with your friends in our restaurants, and you can have a good opportunity to find new dishes or new cultures like Peruvian, Indian, and England.
And you don't have to break the bank, do you?
Not really. I mean, in about $40-50, you get 3 courses.
Wow.
You get to try so many different varieties. I mean, we in Toronto, we are so lucky to have amazing restaurants, so many different type of varieties. Winterlicious gives you that opportunity.
I love this.
And also, in the restaurants when we are working, the amount of energy it comes in, and we live up for that, right? So
absolutely.
We love seeing restaurants full, and it's the best time of the year.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. Yeah. It's like the perfect opportunity to indulge, right? Like not everybody goes out always to have 3 courses these days, and this is a perfect opportunity to go out with your friends, family, loved ones, and have an amazing meal and treat yourself to some dessert because it's delicious.
Let's indulge.
It is. Oh my gosh. Well, chefs, Ryan Lister, Chef Mahir Shete, and Chef Sergio Nazario, thanks so much for joining us today and bringing in this amazingly delicious food. Check out Winterlicious tomorrow until February the 8th. Thank you. Okay, right now it's time to get into a bit of brand banter with Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters podcast. Tony, this is where we look back at some of the big brand stories of the week. So thanks for joining us all the way from Costa Rica.
Always happy to be here.
Yeah, great, Tony. Good to talk to you. And, let's start with this. It was a massive story when it broke earlier this week for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, taking his name or his alter ego and business dealings to the next level, getting the rights to The Rock. Actually, didn't realize he didn't have them, and also joining the board of the group that owns WWE and the UFC. This is big bucks and a big, big deal.
Absolutely. What a chess move. First of all, he's been fighting for the rights for his name for so long. And the problem being was when he left fighting and decided to become an actor, they said, well, we own The Rock. So this Vince McMahon sold the business to Endeavor. Endeavor said, we want this guy back. He is an unbelievable brand ambassador. And so they did a deal that not only he gets the rights to his name, he gets $30 million in options. And given the world with holograms and AVR and VR, he's going to be able to wrestle long after his body's capable of it. So it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, it's the new cryogenics, right? Holograms.
Absolutely.
We're seeing so many stars do it. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow with Goop, Rihanna with Fenty. So this is just a new era for celebrities. But it's the end of an era for Bad Boy Furniture. Once a business giant here in the GTA, they are now bankrupt. It's, yeah, I remember growing up to that nobody, those commercials.
That's really what it was, a brand that really never moved on from what I call the late night commercial brands, you know, the K-Tels and the ones that would just come screaming at you in the middle of the night before the internet was on. And sadly, they didn't reinvent themselves. I hate to see any business go out, any Canadian business going, but, you know, apartments got smaller, condos got smaller, aging population, kids moving out, and yet to me that brand was always stuck in kind of that recliner chair, fabric, feeling, and that's the reality of a brand. That's when you're standing still and the consumer's moving on, they rarely take you with them.
Yeah, that's a great point, a great lesson certainly for other retailers, especially in the furniture industry, which the margins are so slim, it's so competitive indeed. Okay, Tony, much more serious and in some cases darker story here. Hockey Canada, of course, been trying to regain public trust, you know, since sponsors split on these sexual assault allegations involving players over, it turns out now, multiple years. According to Globe and Mail reports, this police investigation is London moving forward regarding the 2018 team. We don't know yet what this may mean for the 5 players that have been summoned, but what does this mean for Hockey Canada at this point?
Well, it's a real tipping point because they're starting to regain their sponsors. They brought in a new board. They did things they should have done right away. And we talked about it on this program. They took forever to make these moves. Now they got to make very bold moves. And these bold moves have got to be a zero tolerance policy. There's got to be, the NHL's got to be aligned with this. Everybody's got to move and use this as an opportunity to reflect on who we used to be and to establish without any question who we need to be. And if they do that, they can actually use this to their advantage. But if they sit on the sidelines, they also have to be very careful because we need due process and the trial, you know, the court of public opinion is not, we're dealing with people's lives. But even within all of that, they've got to use this concept of this is who we are, this is what matters. And going forward, we don't care if you have the capability of scoring 100 goals, this is not going to be allowed in our league, amateur or professional.
So how do you show that then to the public, Tony? How do you make people understand that? I mean, it's one thing to sort of say and write things down, but in terms of deliverables, I suppose, how do you prove to people there is change?
I think it's a combination of a new charter. It's education that's got to go not only through the coaching ranks all the way down, but parents as well. Because you got to realize a lot of times it's these parents that are living vicariously through their kids, and so, you know, they're carrying their hockey bags in, and they're making sure that they get the next best stick, and all. They create this whole mentality of being invincible as a kid. I think that entire thing has got to go back to this is about winning games, competition, teamwork, but it's also about respecting each other and society. Nobody's so good that they're above anything. And I think that's what existed, and that's what you got to erase. It's going to take a long time. Culture is not an easy thing to change. It's not a little, you know, plaque on the board that your boss sends you and suddenly says we're this or that. I mean, it's just systemic, and it's going to take a while. But I tell you, a new board, use this to your advantage, and have Canadians regain their faith in Hockey Canada.
Yeah, that's some food for thought. Chatter That Matters podcast host Tony Chapman and marketing expert. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.